Off-track behavior is when the kids are not able to stay within the boundaries we've established together, if they're old enough to establish together. Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andee Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. We're talking about off-track behavior, something I get asked about all of the time. What do I do when my kids don't listen, won't pick up their room, do their chores, homework, all of the things? This is what inquiring minds want to know. It's definitely what I wanted to know. How do I get my kids to finally do what I need so that I don't go crazy? That's what we're talking about today, off-track recovery recipe. How do we strategically, connectively respond to our kids when they are doing the opposite of what we think they should be doing in a way that actually moves the needle? When we respond with corrective techniques, when we do punishments, punitive consequences, tactics like timeouts and rewards, we might be able to temporarily shift their behavior, but we're not permanently pivoting it in the direction that is productive and will set them up for the most success in their life. So we're going to dial that in today. And what you're going to be listening to today is a workshop I did about 1.5 years ago. This is one of 5 workshops I did in a week. I've been releasing them on the podcast. I think this is day 4, if I'm remembering right. So if I reference other trainings I've done earlier in the week, I might say, this is Thursday. And what I said on Monday, that's what I'm talking about. So you can go back and listen to them. They're sprinkled throughout the last month or so. I've been dropping them on the podcast. So you can go check those out and get the information from the other days of the workshop there. But each one is standalone and is teaching principles that are so powerful. I stumbled upon this recording. I'd kind of forgotten about this workshop. And I was going through some files and I found it. And it was so good when I started to re-listen to it. I thought, I've got to share this on the podcast. It's a training I created for my group, the League of Extraordinarily Connected Parents, but also invited visitors to come experience the group for the week. And so I thought, hey, you guys are all here to experience Connect Method Parenting. And so I know some of you are in my group league. Some of you are my one-on-one clients. Some of you have just discovered me. So you get a taste of it if you haven't ever been in a training with me. And if you have, you get to experience it again. It's so good. So enjoy this workshop. It's really fun. It's interactive. I am talking to people who are live there on the training. And sometimes I turn my back and write things on the whiteboard. So my sound might not be consistent, but it's still going to be so fun. And you can hear me. I double checked. All right, enjoy the workshop. And if you have a second and haven't left a review or subscribe to the podcast, could take a minute to do that today, I would so appreciate it. It's how we help get the word of Connect Method Parenting out to more people. All right, here we go. Let's jump right into the workshop. Welcome, everybody. Could somebody just do me a huge favor and let me know if you can hear me okay? Checking my settings right now. Perfect. Thank you, Janae. Thank you, Allison. So good. Thank you so much. Okay. I was just telling everybody just before we get started, I literally just walked in from driving through a blizzard. My kids had a doctor's appointment this morning and I was like, it's going to be fine. I'll be back in plenty of time. Holy cow. I am from Arizona where we don't get weather. We're up in the mountains and it is snowing. So I don't know if anybody can relate. But let's get started, shall we? I'm so thrilled. I set the intention when I left this morning. I'm like, I'm going to be back in time. I'm going to be back in time. So I did. And I'm going to actually pull over my board. We're going to do some workshopping stuff today. We're talking about off-track behavior recipe. So what is off-track behavior? What does that mean to you when you're thinking off-track behavior? Yes. Let's see. You're starting to come in here. Disrespectful. Yes. Yelling at parents, fighting with siblings. Yes. So I'm going to write these down. So disrespectful. Yes. When we're fighting, yelling. I'm like vacillating between all caps today for some reason. Yelling. When they talk back. Yes. Which I saw also on there. Rude. Yeah. When they don't listen. Perfect. Yes. These are all pretty common. Disobey. When they're difficult. Okay. Do we have a pretty sufficient list here? Anything else you can think of? Oh, they don't seem to care at all. That's a good one, Allison. Yeah. They don't care. That's what our brain says, right? They don't care. They don't care about me. They don't care about the rules. They don't care about their grades. They don't care about their future. They don't care about their siblings. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Let's see. Okay. We're going to keep digging into this. How do you feel Because here's the thing. If we go back to day 1 this week, for some of you, is like a new thing, for others, a review of this idea that our parenting starts in our brain with our beliefs about our kids, about ourselves, about their behavior, which is totally fine. No problem with that. But as we have those beliefs, then we have emotions that come up, and those emotions are the fuel to our actions. Dr. Gordon Neufeld says, he's an amazing developmental psychologist. He's really devoted his life to studying the impact of life on kids and how they mature. And he says that emotions are the engine to maturation, meaning they are the fuel that grows us up or the fuel that keeps us stuck. He's studied juvenile delinquents and so much data talking about how part of it is the emotions that are stuck in their bodies. Little tangent there, but let's go back to what I was talking about. How are you feeling? This is why, actually, let me get back to the point. The point is we need to understand how we're feeling so that we can understand what's driving our actions, and then we can start to unpack it from there. So if we're feeling like they're disrespectful, they're fighting, they're yelling, they're talking back, they're rude, they don't listen, they disobey, they're difficult, they don't care, what are the emotions that are coming up? Typically, when you're having these thoughts come to your head and they're pretty much subconscious, they're already in there, you're not intentionally wanting to think about your kids' behavior in this way, it just seems like the truth. So what are we feeling? What are we feeling? So I'm seeing frustrated. I want us to really look at these. These are very important to look at. Upset, resentful. Let me see what else I'm seeing here. Yeah, resentful. A couple of you guys put that. What else? Worried, sad. Saw concerned. Ooh, disappointed. We'll stop at that one. There's lots of good ones in there. Disappointed, disappointment. Yes. Okay. So this is what we are defining as off-track behavior. I'm going to take a picture of it so I can refer back to it. You could take a screenshot. Not that you need to be reminded of all the things, but it is good to see it because I might want to refer to this in a second. Let's see. Okay. So when we are feeling this way, I want us to backtrack it. So there's something that I use all the time. Those in league totally know this. Those that aren't, I'll just briefly explain. It's called STEER. So to me, it's really just a chain of events that happens whether we like it or not, of like that explains the results or the reason why we do what we do. So if we are thinking this is disrespectful, or any of these, we could pick any of these, and probably we're going to feel maybe resentment. That one might go with resentment. They're fighting, could go with, and we didn't even put overwhelmed, but a lot of times that's what it is, like overwhelmed, confused, but probably worried would be a good one that could possibly go with it. If they're yelling, maybe we're sad. If they're talking back, maybe we're feeling resentment. Are you kidding? I'm doing so much for you. So we can start to link this kind of behavior. And we could even do it. I'm going to erase all of this. I'm very visual in the way I learn and process things. So I love to write it down. If you're not visual, hopefully we're touching the audio, the other ways someone can learn. So what are we thinking? We're going to turn these into thoughts. So if we go back, let's say they're yelling at each other. So if the situation is the kids are yelling, I'm going to use this sometimes, let me write a little lower.
If you're new to Connect Method Parenting, I have a great way for you to get started. I created a free course that covers some of the biggest challenges parents are facing and how Connect Method Parenting solves them. In an hour, we're going to talk about why parenting is so hard, how to get your kids to want to listen to you, how to stop yelling and losing your cool, and become that calm, confident, connected parent for good. It's the fastest way to get started using connection as your go-to tool for influencing and impacting your kids. Go to cmp.works/course to get instant access today.
Sometimes when we're trying to talk about a situation, we try to keep it as factual as possible. So we could just do kids. Actually, for today, I'm just going to do yelling. But really, we'd have to define like what is yelling, because to one person, yelling is different than to another person. I've been around people that I'm like, that is yelling. And they're like, no, this is just talking loud. And it's their culture, their family dynamics. They just talk really loudly and very forcefully. So it's different. So that's why we would typically want to define it. But for today, we're just going to let this be. The kids are yelling. Yes, fighting. Maybe we'll do that. Kids are fighting because there's a whole bunch of that from you guys today. Kids are fighting. We would still want to define that, but I'm not going to do that right now. But just to keep it neutral, there's a whole reason why I'd want to do it. But for today, we'll just keep it on that way, on that. Okay. So if the kids are fighting, I want you to think about what your thoughts are. This is our unintentional steer. So we're just looking at what is going on in my head or what was going on in my head yesterday. So if you have the kids fighting, there could be a couple of different thoughts. It could be, I don't know what to do. Why are they doing this? This is really hard. When are they going to learn to get along? This is going to turn out bad for them. I'm such a terrible mom. This is my fault. They're not nice. They're not responsible. So we could have all of these beliefs coming through, all of these thoughts. So we're just going to pick one thing today to show how this plays out. So if the kids are fighting and my thought is, I don't know what to do, or actually put in the chat, in the Q&A, when your kids are fighting, what is your thought? Can we think about our thinking, step back, use that prefrontal cortex and think about it? Because what we want to see is like why we're getting the results we're getting so that we can get different results. So that ultimately, because today we're talking about your off-track recovery recipe. And in order to create that, we have to know where we are and get really honest with ourselves and be honest with how far we're willing to go today. Okay, Allison says they are mean. Yeah, so our thought is they are mean. Okay, Allison, since you put that down there, what is the emotion that comes up when we're thinking they're mean? Oh, and Janae, I don't have time for this. I'm seeing some of you guys. Yeah. So what's really fascinating is we have different, depending on the situation and our kids and the ages and how long, like it could be, I don't have time for this. Another person, this is so hard. This is never going to change. Yeah. And all of those are valid and relevant and true to our brains. Okay. So Allison says she's frustrated. So the kids are fighting. They are mean. We're feeling frustrated. And then what I love to just explore is what do I do as a result of that? If they're mean in my head, if that's the filter, then what do I do? And Allison, if you want to type it in there, that'd be awesome. Some of you put, I don't have time for this. This is terrible. They're going to grow up to be not nice humans. This is going to turn out bad. What is your emotion? And then what have you done? And remember, these are nervous system reflexes. They're not conscious. We're not doing them because we are intentionally trying to show up like this. It's literally our nervous system trying to keep us safe. And it thinks that this is how it's going to solve the situation. Yeah. I get upset. That could be one that all of us can relate to. Yeah. Ball my fists in frustration, freeze, yell, get upset, tell them to stop. So good. Yes. Not present. We're going into that fight mode. We're going to fix this and fight this and make it go away. Like we're going to war, give them a consequence, blame myself, blame them, try to fix it. All of those things. Try to fix. What else are you guys saying? Not present. We're blaming them. We're blaming us. We're making it mean, all these things. So our brain starts making meaning of it. Like and we did that with they're so mean, but a lot of times we start catastrophizing. Like they're so mean, they're going to end up being an unkind person. They'll probably have problems with relationships. Like we just go through this whole scenario. Yeah. All right. And then what happens? What is the result? So then the result would be here. So this is situation. I didn't even explain to you guys who are visiting. Situation, kids fighting. My thought about it. They're mean. The emotion, frustrated. Then the actions I start doing. All of these things plus probably even more. And then the result. So then it's all of this stuff is creating something for us. We've gone through these actions. We've had these interactions. So what is it creating for us? Yes, I'm seeing so many. I'm blaming myself. This is happening because I'm not a present enough mom. This wouldn't happen if I created a better home environment. Yes, so good. I can relate. This was my story. And thank you, everyone. There's so many comments coming into the chat right now. So thank you. I appreciate it. So nice to have your real thoughts appear. But also you should thank yourself because when you do this work and you actually engage, and if you're not in a place where you can type in the Q&A, that's fine, but engage in your brain. Be answering the questions yourself because that is what makes this real for yourself, for your brain. This is actually what makes the transformation be able to happen, is to see right now we're seeing where we are on the map. If you are here, and that's what we're trying to find out without any judgment. We wouldn't look at a map and be, how dare you be there? Oh my gosh, I shouldn't be there. Just, if you're on, especially I think when I go to the mall with my kids and we see the You Are Here map or the map and it says You Are Here, the little green dot. Nobody's beating themselves up that they're there. They're just like, oh, great, good to know. And that's what we want to do. This is our you are here dot. And now we want to just see what it creates. So the result a lot of times is we feel frustrated with ourselves. We feel like crap. The kids, you guys are doing it. The kids pull away, a wall goes up. We're doing damage control for the rest of the day. We're on edge for the rest of the day. The kids are on edge for the rest of the day. We canceled plans. And sometimes it works. Yes, sometimes it works. There's a temporary fix, but then it happens again the next day. Yes, yes, yes. My kids get tired of me. They don't want to be around me. I'm not very fun. It makes parenting feel like a burden. Yes. So I would say if we had to summarize all of those things up, there's so many ways we could say this, but things don't get better. We could just leave it at that. The relationship doesn't get better. The relationship, the behavior, our self-talk about it. So this is what's happening. Okay. And this is coming from a belief that we have about the behavior. Okay. What happens in your brain when you see the chain reaction? Here's the situation that's happening. This is my thought. This is how I feel. This is what I'm doing. And then this is the result. Things don't get better with my self-talk, with my relationship, with my behavior. So what happens when you see that? When we see the model like that? The chain reaction, I call it the steer. Like how we're steering the boat. I like to think about it as a boat or a car. This tool is allowing us to see where we are steering things. Yes, yes, yes. A lot of awareness. Yeah. I'm just sitting back, taking it all in. So good. I understand better what's happening. Okay. This is coming from a couple of beliefs that behavior is something we need to fix, that if we don't do something about it, we're going to let them get away, that consequences or rewards are what's going to fix the problem, that if the kids aren't behaving, it's our problem. Even just believing about behavior that the kids should be always getting along and keeping up with their chores and whatever, which we want to have that be our goal, but not our expectation that they're always going to be perfect, because otherwise it sets us up for this. Okay, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to share with you my definition. You guys shared your definition of off-track behavior, which was, let me just repeat it: fighting, yelling, not caring, disobeying, kids not listening. That's pretty typical of what we're thinking when our kids are misbehaving, or when we think about off-track behavior. You might not have heard somebody use the word off-track behavior. I like it because it is different. And I think it defines really well what's going on. Okay, so my definition is off-track behavior is when the kids are not able to stay within the boundaries we've established together, if they're old enough to establish together. My definition also includes an indicator that the kids are struggling and need help. Off-track behavior is a sign that their nervous system has been activated. Off-track behavior is informing me and telling me about what's going on inside of them. And then my belief about off-track behavior is it's something I can totally handle. Yes, I can say it again. Off-track behavior is when the kids are not able to stay within the boundaries we've established. And that helps me stay neutral about it. That's all that's happening. They're not being rude or mean or difficult. They're not trying to be defiant. And one of the things that I challenge all of us to do for those in league, as we go into the nuances, when you go through the module about steer, talk a lot about how if we can get to the neutrality of what's happening, it allows us to really be able to teach and show up and have this influence over ourselves and with our children that allows them to light up their intrinsic motivation so that they can show up in a way that's more aligned to their inner goodness. And when we're coming in with judgment and we're thinking they should do better, they could do better, they would do better, back to that, one of those mistakes that we want to avoid as a parent, which is normal, but we want to learn to avoid it, is it really creates a lot of resistance to them and us to be able to really problem solve and figure out what the next step is. So when we can redefine off-track behavior and not make it something negative, but make it something that works for our nervous system to not feel like we have to go into fight or flight. Hey, the kids are just not able to stay within the boundaries we've established. Sometimes I do that too when I'm trying to eat well, and all of a sudden I eat something I wasn't going to do that, or I miss exercising. Sometimes we all do that. We step outside the boundaries we're trying to establish for ourselves. It's an indicator that the kids are struggling and need help. I love believing that this behavior is just an indicator the kids are struggling. Their nervous system is activated. Something hard happened today. Who knows all the things, right? Sometimes we dig in, and when we finally understand it, we realize somebody at school said something to them about their ability to do math. And now they just have this block, and it looks like to us as defiance, but really it's them just feeling so inadequate and so unable to be good at that subject. So we want to redefine this. It's a sign their nervous system has been activated, information telling me what's going on. Think of it like the fruit tree analogy I used a couple of days ago, where the fruit is like the behavior, and it's showing us what's happening at an internal level. The fruit is not tasty and perfect and ripe and all the things it's supposed to be if the tree is struggling. It's hunkering down and it's trying to survive, and it's not as worried about the fruit. And that's what the behavior is. The behavior is the fruit of something going on inside of them. And when we can think about it like that, they are fighting constantly, or they are just at each other's throats, or they won't listen to anything I say. Be the scientist, the compassionate scientist, and realize, what is this information telling me? This is a little experiment. I love the belief about myself that I can totally handle this. So what we're diving in today is aligned to the third strategy of Connect Method Parenting. There's 3. Understand our behavior so we can leave room for theirs, consistently connect, and then choose closeness. And so this is all about staying close when we want to just run away or we want to attack. We want to instead stay emotionally close, not always physically close. Sometimes we're not like right in the same room as them, but we want to stay emotionally connected and close, at least in our head towards them. So this is staying close, calm, connected when our bodies want to fix, run away, which is that passive avoid the energy, or get confused, which is the freeze response in the nervous system response. So the fix is the fight, the get away or avoid, ignore. Sometimes we vacillate, or we might have a favorite camp you like to live in. So that's the passive avoid, that's the flee, and then get confused and just spin around it is the freeze. I don't know what to do. So it takes practice to be able to choose closeness. So even though today you are about to create an off-track recovery recipe for off-track behavior, for one off-track behavior, please, I want to just say this for everybody, be patient with yourself as you bridge the gap between what we're going to create and then mastering the implementation of it. This is a process, and it takes time to create this new neural pathway inside of your brain, which results in the new default belief and behavior around the situation you've been dealing with for a while. Okay, I'm going to teach you a little bit, and then we're going to go into the creating of it today. So today we're talking about creating that off-track recovery recipe. And the reason I want to talk for just a second about the relationships is because I think we're really confused about the power of relationships, how they work, and the impact they have in our parenting. And I think we're confused about what creates them. So here's what is important. We're under the impression that we have to control the world and the other people in it. They need them to behave a certain way so that we can feel good. So we have a lot of rules, especially for our kids, for the relationships and for the behavior. And we have so many rules that we actually have stopped experiencing them. So that's why we start getting so surfacey. We start getting in this hair-triggered nervous system response cycle where the slightest off-track behavior causes our brain going into fight or flight mode, because we haven't identified these thoughts we have about the relationship and about their behavior. And so we're not experiencing them. We are locked into our expectation of how they should be. And our relationships are simply the thoughts we have about the other person. So let me give you an example. I have an amazing friend. She's been my friend since high school, since we were 7. I think she's amazing, gorgeous, fun, smart, loyal, all of the things. So I was thinking the other day, like, how would it be possible that not everyone has these exact same thoughts for her? They're my truth. And why isn't everyone who knows her love her in the same way I do? I want you to think about it. It's because someone else can know her and have a completely different relationship with her. Person at the grocery store that barely meets her is going to have a totally different thought, or someone who's only known her for a year, or maybe encountered her in a situation that maybe was a little bit heated, right? She hasn't changed, but the relationship that different people have with her is dependent on their thoughts about her, not her. And knowing this is the secret sauce to all relationships. And ultimately what we want to create here with our parenting is these deep, trusting relationships with our kids, so that we can tell them, hey, that's unacceptable, that behavior that just happened, but you're not unacceptable. That we can simultaneously send those messages. And we can also remind ourselves, hey, I'm capable of sending that message to them. I love them. I don't have to get triggered. And we're reprogramming ourselves to our own relationship with ourselves and our beliefs about our ability to parent. So now, many of you will say that your thoughts about another person, about your kids, are dependent on how they behave. And I know at a level you're like, no, I love them. Tara, like, I love them. I know you do. But when we're getting triggered and frustrated over their behavior, it's because in that moment, our relationship with them is altered based on their behavior. All of us do it. We're just going to have to keep catching ourselves. And this is the crux of what I want you to know, is that isn't where we have to stay. Your thoughts about them will be dependent on your expectations of them and how well they meet those expectations. So we have these thoughts. So that's why we've been drilling in. And I took the time today to be, well, what is off-track behavior? What do you think about it when it happens? What are you feeling? Because that is all stuff that we can tweak and change, not so that we just get passive. A lot of people think that, oh, then you're just not going to do anything. Absolutely not. Actually, what it allows you to do is be so much more empowered, because now I can come in and keep my brain on when I need to help them sort out their mess that they're creating for themselves. So when we realize ultimately our ability to parent from a place of love and compassion and connection and firmness, consistency and confidence comes from our thoughts about ourselves and our thoughts about our kids and the expectations we have with them, then we can get really clear and we can clean it up. So you can't have love for someone. You just have love when you think about them. That's so interesting. You can't be mad at someone. You can only have thoughts that make you mad. So we're not actually mad, or it's not about the person. It's about what we're believing that generates that allows us to have that interaction with that person. And I want you to think about this visually. There is you and there is the other person. And you don't have direct experience of the other person with nothing in between. We sometimes think we do. So with our kids, we think we're just seeing the facts. But if someone else came in, one of their friends, they would have different belief. Another parent might even come in and be like, oh my gosh, this isn't a big deal. Or this is a really big deal. They're going to have different beliefs. So we don't have this direct experience with the other person. We have what's in between. There's something in between, and it's our beliefs, all of that thinking. And we barely ever get to experience the other person if that thinking is messy, if it's judgmental, if it's icky. I don't know a better word for that, just not clean. So once you truly understand this, your relationship will never be the same. The relationships with your child will never be the same. That's why we're taking the time to unpack this week. It's really the thing that you need to understand to create a really clean off-track recovery recipe. You will notice that many of your relationships are similar, and this is because we tend to have similar thought patterns. We recycle thoughts, relationship thoughts. We have this from a lifetime of programming, and it's no one's fault. There's no frustration about it. It's just how all of us are influenced by what's around us and what people have said. So test me on this. I want you to think about the person you love the most in the world. And what is your thought, your main thought about them? And now I want you to think about the person you love least in the world, and what's your main thought about them? See, the thoughts are there. They're different. So here's what we're going to do today. We are going to pick for you. I want you to pick just one off-track behavior. I know your brain's going to want to solve them all, but just one off-track behavior. Write it down, declare it, type it in the Q&A. What is the one behavior that if you could get some traction on, you would feel amazing about? A top of the world. Kids fighting, messy house, homework routine smoother. Yeah. Morning routine, talk back, meltdowns. So good. So type that in there. So we talked about what by default our brains are doing. So if we could, we're going to go to imaginary fairy tale land. If you could be thinking anything in the world about this off-track behavior, what do you want to think about it? I'm going to offer some that you are welcome to just copy and paste for yourself. I got this. This is information. He's struggling. This is just his nervous system, not him. She's not thinking straight. His emotions are high right now, so his intelligence is low. I'm committed to figuring this out. I want to help him. They just aren't in their right mind right now. This isn't them. This is them in a fight and flight mode. Pick one of those or post one. If anybody wants to post in Q&A, not if anybody wants to post it. Come on, guys. Post the behavior and what you want to think about it. And we're focusing on us and the way we're visualizing or thinking or believing about the behavior. Okay. And we're going to just pull it apart so that you can create a really good plan to use the next time it happens. This is how we retrain our brain. We do it one step at a time, one behavior at a time. So fighting. Okay. We're going to do that one. So if the situation we're going to work on is the kids fighting, and my thought is, anybody want to put theirs in, what they would do? So good. You guys are putting in things that are powerful. Yeah, I love it. So if they're fighting, I'm seeing a couple more, so I'm just going to do a couple more. Cutting remarks, whether that's sarcasm, criticism, negativity towards us, whatever. And then the thought, we put that in Allison, that was good. She's hurting. And then Think about how you would feel if they're fighting. What if the thought is they need my help? They need my help. Or another one could be, I don't usually put two thoughts typically, but we're just going to do it today. I got this could be another version of this. There's so many different options. So cutting remarks, writing too high. So cutting remarks, she's hurting. And then how would we feel? I think this one is compassion all the way. So if I have compassion, then my actions are what? How does that change everything? And then over here, if the thought was, I got this, and this isn't to try to get the right answer, it's to try to understand. They need my help, maybe capable. Or if you think of a different one, put it in there. There's no right way to do this. It's just for us to start to be like, oh, if I felt capable, what would I do? Or if they need my help, that is such a good one. They need my help. When I'm thinking that I am feeling very capable. Like they need my help. I'm feeling very clear because I feel I understand what's actually going on. So if the situation is cutting remarks, she's hurting, I have compassion. There's so many things that could go here. I check to see how I'm feeling. Check in with self. Am I triggered? Maybe I get close and make eye contact. You feel compassion. You're patient. For those who are in league, go into the last module, choose closeness in the CMP Master's course. I give you so many ideas. Also, we talk about seen and heard, which is the framework to be able to piece together that gives tons of good actions because there's so many layers to this. There's the actual, how do I respond in the moment? There's how am I building the relationship ahead of time? How am I understanding my own behavior or my thoughts or their thoughts? But what you can see is if the cutting remarks, you can see that, okay. And I'm patient with her and I get close and I make eye contact and I check in with myself to make sure I'm feeling good. And then I don't judge her and I'm patient with her. Then the results for me, I help her navigate this. It could also be, I understand her more, also connect with her. I connect with her. What you'll find is if you can stay calm and connected in the middle of this, then you will be able to strengthen the relationship instead of damages the relationship is so much better. Okay, why do we want to believe this is true? Why do you want to believe this is true? They need my help. If we look at the reality of the nervous system, it's just the truth. The nervous system, when we get triggered because we're feeling out of control, when we're feeling attacked, when we're feeling not safe, we lose our ability to guide ourselves in the deeper way that we typically can. And so it's the truth. And she's hurting. That could be a reason why you want to believe it, because it helps me show it better. So good. I think there's a better chance of a good outcome if I don't lose my mind when they start fighting, because it's not working to believe what I've been believing, because it feels way better. Yeah. All of that is so good. I want you to get clear on why you want to believe this, because otherwise your brain will be, no, they don't need my help. They need to be fixed. They need to be stopped. They need to be nice. They need to be kind. We want to get clear on why we do want to believe this. And then how will you feel? We talked about that: calm, confident, capable, peaceful, motivated, compassionate, creative, empowered, patient. Those are some of the emotions that we want to be feeling when we're interacting. The kid's behavior is off track. In seen and heard, you go and see, and then you might need to give a direction. Then you might need to set a limit. Then you might want to get a little playful to see if you can get them out of the emotions, or sometimes you just want to stay with them as they're struggling. And then we're going to come back to reconnecting at the end, called bridging, where you come back and you're, even though right now I had to set a limit, I love you and let's do this thing together. So remember that, league members, right? Go back in and review seen and heard so that you can remember all the components that allow us to interact in a calm, connected way when things are going off track. But the biggest thing is always, if you can, go look at them in the eyes. If they won't look you in the eyes when they're struggling, then you're not even able to establish a working relationship with them. And you want to establish connection before doing much of anything else. So if they won't look you in the eyes, if they're so out of control, they don't make much sense at all, then you just want to keep them physically safe in the moment and navigate other parts later. So here's some suggestions as far as actions once you get clean on this. Look them in the eyes and try to establish connection before going any further. Check with yourself to see how you're thinking and feeling. Make sure everyone is safe. Getting curious instead of critical. Separate them if they start fighting, but don't try to fix it in the moment. That will not work. If you try to tell them why they shouldn't fight, or you try to figure out who was fighting or what caused it, not helpful in the moment. Everyone's triggered. Emotions are high, intelligence is low. Remind yourself that they need you. If you need to set a limit, saying you can't yell right now and you need to move people to keep everyone safe, do that. Sit by them if they're struggling, see if you can stay with them and support them through that and not be frustrated or disappointed. Realize that crying is a way we move emotions through our nervous system, help their nervous system feel so safe. They know that wasn't acceptable or that was not kind. They know that. They have that internal compass. We want to remind them, even though they were struggling, that's not who they really are. That's their nervous system. That's not them. Today, I'm going to leave it at that. And I want to wrap things up as you're building your recipe. So here's what you're going to do. Your recipe is, I'm just going to do one. But here's what you're going to do. You're going to pick one situation and I want you to write it in a steer. Okay, guys? So you're going to write S, that's for the situation. And you're going to write the situation, the kids fighting, the cutting remarks, whatever it is. This is going to be your recipe card. Then we're going to identify, hopefully today in the call, you already identified all the default beliefs you have about it. But if not, do that because that's putting you on the map of this is where I am. So you need to do the default, but this is the intentional steer. So do the unintentional steer. The situation, what you typically think, how you typically feel, what you typically do, and the result of that. But for the recipe card, and I would suggest getting a 3x5 card and writing this out. This is what I did at the beginning because I would get triggered when the kids were fighting and I needed a thing I could look at without having to use my brain. I needed to be able to say step by step, here's what we're doing. So you're going to look at the situation. You're going to write that down. You're going to write your thought and I'll just do one so that it's easier. Okay, we'll do cutting remarks to keep it more neutral. Sometimes the cutting remarks has this like gut visceral reaction inside of us. So another way to get even cleaner, you could just say even the child's name. So if it was like Sadie saying, and then you could even say the quote, you're mean or you don't care. You could say the actual words. The more specific you can be, if they typically say or do something, I would be very specific. Leaving toys, on floor if it was a messy thing, or kids saying this to each other, then our brains are having to zero in even more specific, which makes it easier for our brains to change. So if the cutting remarks are actually, Sadie says, you're mean, you don't care about me, whatever it is, or maybe she's saying something to a sibling, you're weird, then we would write those down. And then what do I want to think about this? Let's say you decide on she's hurting. Okay. And then in the future, if I'm thinking she's hurting when she says you're mean, just that she's hurting, how would I feel? It might be curiosity. It might be compassion. I'm going to go with compassion because I love that emotion and I'm always trying to cultivate it more. So when she says this and I'm thinking this, think of it like you're a sous chef and you have all the makings for something beautiful, but you're trying to create that recipe that's really going to match. It's going to just be this masterpiece that you're going to, in the future, create, but you haven't created it yet. That's what we're doing. So we're imagining what we're going to create. If I'm feeling compassionate and I'm believing she's hurting, then what am I going to do? I would brainstorm at first all of the things that you think you would do, because right now when you're creating this, you're in a very good headspace. You're using your prefrontal cortex. You're using your highest level of love and compassion and belief in your child. So you want to brainstorm all of the things. There's probably going to be way too many things on here, or maybe not. So brainstorm it. And then what I want you to do is come up with some step-by-step scenarios. So when this happens the next time, I'm going to do this. 1, check in with myself. It could even be like a little flow chart. Feeling good, feeling judgy. If I'm judging, I do this. If I'm good, I do this. And so you can have a plan. And I want you to lay it all out for yourself. This is going to create something amazing for you. Their behavior will be impacted. They will be impacted by how you change. I promise. It happens every time. Might not be on your timeline. You might wish it was speeding up, but it will come as a sustainable change instead of like a fad diet where you do something extreme that might drop a few pounds today, but it's not sustainable. We're changing the lifestyle. So it might take some time because we're doing it right. We're doing it in a way that goes to the root. Gandhi says we have to be the change we want to see in the world. If we want our kids to be more civilized, more calm, more patient, more compassionate, we need to be the example of what that looks like. Even when it feels like this situation is really challenging, can we show them, hey, we know how to handle challenging things and we know how to be compassionate and calm and civilized? They'll start to see our example. This is the trickle effect. So I recommend getting a 3x5 or 4x6 card once you've flushed this out, and write out your off-track recovery recipe on the card and keep it in your back pocket so that you can pull that sucker out when the off-track behavior shows up. And all you have to do is follow the flow chart. And you're not going to get it right at first. This is 100% normal. In business, they say the people who have succeeded the most are the ones that have been willing to fail the most to get there. It's the same thing with parenting. Discomfort, failure is the currency to success. And learning how to fail productively, meaning you're learning from each fail and allowing it to make you better, allowing it to make you wiser, calmer, more confident, or more aware. That was really fascinating. I got so triggered yesterday. And now I'm more aware of what led up to that. This is how you're going to create the skill of actually being able to choose closeness in the heat of the moment. And this choose closeness is what we dive so deep into in the third strategy inside the CMP Masters course. So go refer to that if you haven't worked on that yet. So go work on creating your customized off-track behavior recovery recipe card. Oh, thank you so much for your comments in the Q&A. Thank you. You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Yours are so sweet. All right. We'll see you guys. Bye.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, come check out League, my Connect Method parenting coaching program, where we take this material and we apply it using my proven formula. Head over to cmp.works/join.